there, it's Sandee Sgarlata. Get ready to dive deep into incredible stories of people who've taken life's challenges and turned them into a roadmap to happiness. On this show, we're not just talking about overcoming obstacles, we're uncovering the real, gritty secrets to living a life filled with peace, joy, and genuine happiness. This is Happiness Solved, so let's get started because happiness is a choice, and the choice is yours. Neil, such a pleasure to have you on today. And so funny that you live right down the street from me. And I love that when I talk to people. I'm like, darn, we could have done this in person.
Yeah, we should have. We could have gone and done it in a park somewhere or something.
Right. Yeah. So for those who aren't familiar with Neil Markey, he's the co-founder and CEO of Beckley Retreats, which is dedicated to promoting the science-backed benefits of psychedelics and holistic well-being. So I love talking with people. It's interesting because the more and more that psychedelics are starting to get back into mainstream, and it looks like we're on some course correction here, right? Because they really shouldn't have been classified the way they were
Right,
classified to begin with.
right.
But so before we dive into that, you're also a former captain in the U.S. Army Special Operations 2nd Ranger Battalion. So first of all, thank you for your service. I'm so grateful for you. You served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and then you went to Columbia University. So all amazing on paper. However, I'm guessing there's a lot more to your story than just that. And there's probably a reason that you've, chosen to dive into the science behind psychedelics and whatnot. So can you just give us an idea of your story? You can go into as much detail as you want. Because I'm guessing it has to do with your service to this country has kind of put you in this situation or
It's
assisted.
true. It's true. Yeah,
Right.
it's been a windy road. Um,
Yeah.
well, I guess I'll give you the short. I was at University of Maryland, just down the road here, doing my undergrad, and then September 11th happened, and that struck something in me. You could actually see the smoke from the Pentagon
Yep.
at the top of the football stadium. Next thing you know, I ended up doing ROTC, and then joined the service. I thought I was helping. If you remember that weapons of mass destruction story, we
Yeah.
had to go get Saddam or he was going to get us. Well, by the time I got through school and got through training and got to Iraq, we had learned that that wasn't all bullshit.
Right.
So that was pretty tough. Um, and then I got a chance to go try out for the Ranger Regiment, and I was with the Rangers for 2 deployments to Afghanistan. And, I was more on the support side, and I was an officer, so I was one step removed from the worst of it. But it definitely left some marks on me. I mean, now looking back,
How could it
the,
not?
the entire unit had severe PTSD. And I had a really bad jump in training one time where I hit my head really hard. So I had one of these traumatic brain injuries on top of the challenging environment. And, it was just really some really tough years. And then I got out in 2012 and went to grad school. And by, some measures was doing really well. I was at a good school, and was getting, good job offers, but I was struggling. I was isolating and, cycling through different SSRIs and anti-anxiety medications. And I got introduced to meditation. That was super impactful for me. It was kind of right on time, right what I needed. And then I had a couple underground but professionally facilitated psychedelic experiences, and those were life-changing. Now there's been 12 years between there and today, but that was kind of the beginning of me realizing that there was something quite special in these kind of alternative modalities that I'll actually, some people have been using for thousands of years without pause. It's just
Right.
the developed world that's forgot about them, but it's coming back. It's coming back.
Right. Right. Exactly. Wow. So let's just take a side do a side note first, and I want to come back to the benefits that you've received. But can you just explain to the audience, because I kind of talked about this on a very high level on another episode. I spoke with the gentleman who wrote the book, Paul Austin. He wrote a book on microdosing. So I talked with him just last week, I believe. And we just kind of glossed over it. But can you give the audience just a little bit of education to kind of explain what I mentioned at the beginning, where we're on a course correct, and how back in the 70s psychedelics were classified as a very strong Schedule 1, wasn't it Schedule 1?
Schedule 1, yeah.
Schedule 1 narcotic, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. There was a lot of research happening up until that point because psychiatrists, medical professionals, researchers saw that there was something quite profound here. You know, no one ever thought that they were for everything or for everybody and without risk, but they, without question, you know, should be, you know, explored. But then the whole war on drug thing happened. And yeah, the United States ended up classifying mushrooms, MDMA, you know, a lot of the classic psychedelics as Schedule 1, which basically says there's no known benefit at all. So it's the same bucket as methamphetamine or heroin. And so that shut down a lot of the research. You know, it was very hard to get any approvals
Well,
or
also
dollars.
marijuana was also put
Marijuana
into
was Schedule 1.
1.
Yeah,
Right.
which is really, really, really wild. And then because a lot of the world follows the United States in terms of these public policy decisions, a lot of the world through the UN enacted their own policy, which restricted use of these compounds. So there was this kind of dark period from, you know, the mid 70s until quite recently, where all the use and a lot of the research was really on the fringes. And, you know, many of us that grew up in the, you know, the the later part of the last century, were brought up in a world where, you know, it's like the dare, the don't use drugs kind of environment. And I think that in some ways we got indoctrinated into thinking that these compounds were like the boogeyman. And they're just not, you know. I mean, there's risk to them, but if you do you know, compare them to the risk of many other activities we do on a daily basis, you know, and compare the risk to the potential upside. Again, they're not for everyone, they're not for everything. But there's something quite significant here that I think is going to change how we think about mental health and how we think about holistic well-being globally, you know, over the next bit of time.
Well, I tried to Google it really quickly, and I have some typos in it, so it's not really coming up. But what I had understood is that it was more politically driven to have psychedelics and marijuana, you know, made Class 1 because of the hippie revolution, where they were anti-war.
Yeah.
And wanting to put a lot of blacks in jail because they were they had all the marijuana, they were smoking the weed, and the hippies were using the LSD, and they didn't like any of that. So that's the Cliff Notes version, folks. You can Google it. There's a whole story behind it. And it was literally done for political reasons. But we don't talk politics here, so.
Yeah. Well, the good news is that things are shifting, you know,
yes,
and
exactly.
I think the tides have turned. So
yeah, for sure. So after you said you did an underground, which, you know, there's very few places right now in the United States where you can legally obtain psychedelics. So you said you did like an underground assisted type situation. What were the effects that you noticed right away? Was there anything that you're like, oh, wow, this is different?
Yeah. It was like a body kind of central nervous system level reset. And I describe it as like my whole being was almost like a bunch of rubber bands that were just twisted and extended almost to the point where some of them were like snapping. It was just this tension. I was walking around with my fists clenched literally and metaphorically in this kind of state of fight or flight. Now, a lot of people that knew me probably didn't know it because, you can hide a lot of things. And I think that's a big insight for me too, is you meet someone, you have no idea what's going on internally for that
That's
person,
right.
so it's important for us to all have that kind of empathy because there's a lot of pain out there. But yeah, it just was like my body released. It just was like a sigh that had been building for 20 years, just um and but it in some ways it was a permanent thing. Like I don't think I ever went back to as wound as I was, but you know by the time once you've had a lot of traumatic experiences and you've gotten to be older in life, a lot of that kind of way of being gets pretty worn in. There's a lot of momentum there. And so it's not just like a one and done, and then all of a sudden magically you're like fixed. And
Right.
and so for me, it's been quite a process. I think I'm still in this process. And I think that, it really is more about trying to figure out a different way to live and figuring out different habits and like learning how to take better care of yourself, and so that takes time.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So you decided that you were going to have a retreat, Beckley Retreats. So talk about that, because is it in multiple locations or is it just in the Netherlands?
It's in Jamaica in the Netherlands. And
Okay.
I mean so it was 2012, I was in grad school, and then 2015 I graduated. In that period of time, I got to experiment with a lot of different long form programs, meditation retreats and different, plant retreats, and was learning a lot on my own. And then actually went back and did a teacher certification in meditation at Jefferson University, was teaching meditation in the intelligence agencies and to business people. And a lot of my symptoms were gone. I was doing really well. And then the kind of a pivot point for me was I had been deferring this job offer with McKinsey and Company, and I asked them for another deferral, and they said no. And I ended up going there, and I had this stint of 6 years in the corporate world between McKinsey and this private equity role, where now, with the benefit of hindsight, I realized my mental health actually started going the wrong way after making so much progress. And now I know it's because it was bad work environments, and even though I knew better, I got kind of caught up in the hyper materialism and not taking good care of myself. And a lot of my symptoms kind of over 6 years started coming back. And I also saw those same symptoms in a lot of my peers who weren't war veterans. They were executives, but they were using alcohol and troubled relationships and having trouble sleeping, all these things, and so about 4 years ago, I left, not really knowing what I was going to do, but I just knew that I wasn't going to do that anymore. It's like I'd been well before. I had kind of lost my way, and I was like, okay, I'm going to reset. And I got back to teaching meditation. Um, and then I met this woman, Amanda Fielding, who's the executive director and founder of the Beckley Foundation, which is one of the world's leading research nonprofits for psychedelics. She's been working on this for her entire life. For literally like over 60 years, she's been working on this. And she's just a real amazing woman that's accomplished so much and has done it in such a admirable way, I would say. And her family um, we're seeing that the world was opening up and more people were interested in these experiences. And we're seeing that it was a bit of the wild, wild west right now. And, it was gray area and underground offerings and, this big
Right.
safety concern. And so they're like, can we, create an organization that gives people safe access to these experiences and do it like at a really professional level and do
Right.
it, in a more integrative approach, like teach people how to take better care of themselves alongside of giving them these transformational experiences. You're going to get more out of them and you're going to decrease risk. And so we got connected, you know, 4 years ago and then founded Beckley Retreats. So Amanda started the Beckley Foundation. There's a couple other Beckley organizations. And then we founded Beckley Retreats together, which is these long form nature-based community programs. And yeah, we have operations in Jamaica and the Netherlands because it's fully
Okay.
legal there. And we can be insured and everything's above board. We know where the mushrooms come
Right.
from. We test the mushrooms. There's no shady business going on. And we
Right.
really value that. We think that's important. So people can feel very at peace and really relax into the experience.
Yeah. You mentioned it's assisted, and the reason it's assisted is because, well, there may be generic guidelines that, if you take this much, this is what you'll experience, and there's different levels. Each individual is going to experience it differently. And so it's important to have somebody there with you, to help you and guide you. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, mushrooms are quite safe. There are risks. There's people that probably should not be taking mushrooms. We can kind of talk through some of those, the things we know related to that. But yeah, I mean, if the amount matters a lot, but if you do take a larger amount, which is what you would see like in a clinical trial, which is where, we can see a lot of the benefit, it can be a scary experience because your reality shifts in a way it's never shifted before. And
Right.
so it's just important to be in, they call it set and setting, but to be in the right place with the right people and have done the right lead up, so that you can kind of get the most out of it and you're not in a position where you're regretting taking the mushrooms because you're not prepared. But it's like the prep and the things, it's like relatively simple, it's not complex, but there is a process, there's certain things you need to do, and then you can have a managed experience. But that doesn't mean it won't be challenging. A lot of people do have challenging experiences, but there's a difference between like a traumatic experience that you regret and wish you never would have done, an experience that you know, requires some effort and feels like some work, but there's some benefit to it and you're glad that you did it at the end of it. There's a difference there.
Right. So if somebody, like, what if, that would be a fear of someone? Um, for example, when I was 19 years old, I tried a half, me and my girlfriend, we split a dose of LSD, right? And it was a wonderful experience, right? Um, we we weren't doing it for medicinal reasons. It was really let's party. This was back in 1986. No, probably 80, 84, 85, something like that. I'm trying to remember. And it was a great, I mean, we just laughed and laughed and laughed. And I never tried it a second time because I had heard stories of people having such bad experiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I never did it again. I'm like, you know what? Do it once, it's fine. Do it a second time. It could be bad. I'm not going to try it. I
Right.
was never really into drugs until I found cocaine. And then that's a whole nother story, and hit rock bottom using cocaine in the late 80s. But anyway, so if somebody has that fear, can you explain how by doing it at one of your retreats would help somebody and facilitate them to ease them and help them to feel more comfortable should they start having an experience that they may regret had they not been on their own? If they were by
Yeah.
themselves, it would be really bad, but by having a person with you, it's going to help ease that.
Yeah. So, I mean, we think about this kind of throughout the entire program. Our programs are, there's a digital preparation portion, then there's the on-site portion, then there's a digital follow-up. And it starts with screening. And so we make sure that folks that are coming on our programs are good fits.
Mhm.
And so we screen out kind of more severe indications. Not that you can't get benefit from these experiences for treatment-resistant depression or PTSD. It's just we're not set up to do that. And we have to manage for a positive group dynamic. And, we have things configured a certain way. So we need people that are generally well. And now everybody's got their stuff, that's part of being human and why people come. But, we do a screening to make sure that we think that you're a good fit. And then a lot of it's in the prep. I mean, you've got a month before you come down where you're doing a lot of this, Western psychotherapy type work. We're getting you to meditate we're teaching you different breathing exercises. You're learning, about the research and the mechanics a bit. So because we know from medicine that kind of mental buy-in matters, so getting people to understand what's happening a bit and like really believe in what's going on is part of it, right? We see this pretty profound in like the placebo effect, just like belief has a really meaningful impact. So there's this like very thoughtful approach to help you get more prepared and get more of what we would call kind of a mind-body alignment before the session. And then the session, the set and setting, our properties are away from everything. It's a very peaceful environment. You can go have these experiences other places where there may be a wedding next door or something, but ours it's thoughtfully, we choose them. And nature matters, you're kind of you're off grid with us. And so we've removed all that. You get to spend a lot of time with your facilitators and you get to know them in the prep, and then you get to spend time with them on site. And I think we are fortunate to have Amanda and her legacy that, and we pay well, it's like part of our model. But we've got some of the best facilitators out there, and they've seen every permutation of how these experiences can go. So they know what to do. And then, we are, there's like amazing kind of more mom and pop operations out there that do a great job. But I would say a thing that's a bit different for us is, we're a bit of a larger organization that's just like a bit more professionalized. We have standard operating procedures, we have training, we take our facilitators through that. If this happens, they know these are the next steps. It's just like, it's a well-run operation with team members that have been doing this work for a long time and kind of know what to do. And there's, all the considerations in place. From a medical perspective, there's always at least a nurse on site. And we have, plans to get to folks to medical facilities if it's needed. You're more likely to twist your ankle or something going on a nature hike than need medical attention for something that's related to the ceremony.
Right.
And also from safety, I mean, it's also common for folks to, have an experience, and then there'll be a point where there'll be like a kind of a big energetic release of sorts. Like they could be crying, or they could, people could yell or be a bit scared. And again, our facilitators, they've done this so many times, they just know there's a point where it's best for that person to go with a facilitator or two facilitators, and we take them to an alternate location for a bit of time. Because what can happen is that individual will get in their head and they'll be like, I'm bothering the group, and then they'll collapse. And really what you want is to just like, let it go, like that's why we're here. So we have plans for all that. And generally that person just needs to kind of go outside, be by themselves for a little while with a facilitator for a minute, let it go for a minute, and then they can come back in. But it's all kind of like we have playbooks for it, and we practice it, and we've done it before. And then, on the back end, the safety continues, like, doing good follow-up, and based on the screening, making sure that we've asked all the right questions and people have everything they need in place, and have good resources if they feel like they need some additional help. So it's just kind of being thoughtful through the whole program.
Nice. Wow. Sounds incredible. It sounds incredible. And sign me up, because I would love to
Come down.
experience that.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. It is.
Yeah. So I'd heard someone say that it's kind of like, not so much with microdosing, but when you do the macro dosing, or a higher level dose, that it can be equivalent to like years of therapy.
Yeah. People say that. I think that if someone has that experience, who is anyone else to say that it's not?
Right.
I think that, we might be setting people up for some disappointment, because I think really what's happening with these experiences is they're opening things up, but then you've got to do some work with that, So I think that we're setting ourselves up for disappointment if we think that we can kind of just take these mindlessly and then we're gonna, bam,
Right.
we're healed.
Right.
That's not a good mindset. It's actually, these compounds, they're profound, and they can really open things up. But you have to kind of meet them halfway, and they have this really, profound way. We don't understand the mechanics, but they have this way of bringing things in our past, deep, like in our psyche, to the surface in some ways. And then you need to do something with that,
Right.
but there's a light on the other side. So, but, after the experiences, there can be some, it can be a bit disorienting, because you're getting confronted with stuff that maybe you've tucked away, and it was nicely tucked away for a while. It was kind of seeping up into your relationships and how you were showing up. And now it's right there. Now you can't deny it. And so, but in that new awareness, then you can maneuver through it, and you can develop a new relationship with it, instead of just pretending like it's not there and tucking it away. But there's challenge in all that, right? But for most, it's like very worth it. It's like very, very worth it.
Well, I always say in order to grow, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And so at the very
Exactly.
least, this is gonna bring that uncomfortable shit to the surface,
Yeah.
and your force, not for, I don't want to use force as a strong word, but you're given the opportunity and the choice. Okay, here it is. It's come up again. Now I have a choice to make as to what I'm going to do with this. And and it's still your responsibility. Like, yeah, because and I'm glad you phrased it like that, because we are in a society, and the whole world has turned into this instant gratification. I want it now. Take this pill for that. Take this shot to lose weight. To
Right.
and okay, that's not reality. Like we still have to do a lot of the work,
Yeah.
and yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, because yeah, there are no quick fixes, and I know I've been on this path for almost 35 years,
Yeah.
and every year I'm like, I thought I dealt with that. Oh, okay, nope, here it is.
Yeah.
It's back.
It's back. Well, and I've seen with my own eyes, people have like radically positive shifts, so it's possible,
Yeah,
to have that. And the reality is like, life doesn't stop coming at us. You know what I
yeah,
mean? It's not, it's almost learning it's just kind of like continuing to learn new ways to live and how to take better care of ourselves. And that process never ends. It's not an end state. It's just like, you know,
right.
yeah,
Happiness is not a pursuit. It's not
yeah,
a destination. It's a journey. It's a
yeah,
practice.
right,
It's a practice. And it's interesting, I just mentioned that, take this shot to lose weight. I know so many people that are using that drug, which is amazing, right? I mean, it's if it helps, and all they're doing is eating less, and that's why they're losing weight. So
right,
you do that without an injection, right?
right,
But
yeah,
you still got to take action.
yeah,
And if you lose weight, the knees are going to feel better, the back's going to feel better, you're going to feel mentally better about yourself, but it's still, you have to work towards it. It's not going to happen overnight. And our mindset is the same thing. It's we have to work through these, and you have to be patient and make it a priority, because it's your choice, right? At the end of the day, you have a choice.
right,
And this is one method. I know I have a form, I always say a form of PTSD. Like I have to apologize for it, or something, that like for so many years, PTSD was only reserved for people who were at war,
mm,
right? And people who saw horrible things. That's what so I still like, okay, well, I have a little bit of PTSD, but you know what, when you go through something traumatic, my pain is no different than anybody's pain. It's just,
yeah,
I always feel some sort of like I don't have the right, because I wasn't involved in war, and that word is only reserved for war heroes and whatnot.
right, yeah. I
No.
know exactly what you mean. And um there's not a lot of benefit in comparing trauma because it's all
No, there
contextual and
isn't.
individual. And I've
Yeah,
had time, you know, like I did go to war, but my war experiences weren't as bad as a lot of my buddies. So then
right.
I'm like, but
Yeah,
yeah, everybody, it's the human condition. Everybody's got some stuff. And if you don't, you probably have some stuff from your grandparents that we know now is buried in there too. So it's all,
yeah,
we've all got it, you know,
yeah.
in there to differing degrees.
You can't escape it,
You
you
can't.
can't. It's going to be there. So, Neil, this has been such an amazing conversation, and thank you so much for coming on. And this is one of those episodes where, this isn't going to be for everybody, right? It's not going to be for everybody, and it just may be for somebody. It may help, and I
Yeah.
like to give my audience every option out there
Great.
to help. So,
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I think, it's worth exploring. You know, it's not for everyone, it's not for everything, but for people that are looking to, you know, let things go or find more clarity or become more empathetic, improve their relationships. Some of the research around psychedelics and the sense of awe is so fascinating. You know, I mean, we are living in this like miraculous world, like moment to moment, if you think about the complexity of things. But most of the times we're just running along and not paying any attention to it. But these experiences can help people just like, you know, sit in the marvel of this incredible world that we're living in. And that's great, you know, when you feel that, wow, this is really special what we're all experiencing. So there's tremendous amount of benefit that can come out of these experiences if they're done in the right way.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about that I haven't brought up before we finish up?
Um, well, just that, you know, we're a small company with a lot of good-hearted people and happy to find time to connect one-on-one, or we do these group calls because I know that you know, folks usually have a lot of questions. So we're here and we're happy to, you know, find time to, you know, answer any questions that people might have. And yeah, if I'd love to hear from some of your audience at some point.
So where would they reach out to you if they wanted to connect with you individually?
Yeah, it's my email is just Neil, Neil at BeckleyRetreats.com. And then
Okay.
if they have more just like kind of logistics types questions, welcome at BeckleyRetreats.com. And if you go to the website, I think it's a really, you know, it's a good site that has a lot of good information. And you can download our program guides. You can schedule a one-on-one call with one of our facilitators. You can read about the research. You can read more about how amazing Amanda is. And yeah, we're here. We're here to help. So let us know.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been so informative, and I know that the audience will find it as well. And if it's not something you need, hopefully this will help somebody that you know. So
Yeah. Thank you.
exactly. All right. Thank you, Neil. And
Take
thank you,
care.
everyone, for listening today. And don't forget to review and like us and follow me on social media. Thanks so much, everyone.